Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock, practicing necromancer. Tonight, I'd like to bring something new to you. Technically, it's not really new because, you see this stuff on social media platforms like Messenger, um, Facebook groups a lot of the time. And these same questions always are presented. How do I join? How do I become like you? Well, there are two things here. First is, do you even know what path that you want to delve into? There's a lot of views on spiritualism out there, from Hebraic to occultism to Hermetics to the African Caribbean traditions, shamanism, necromancy, druidic. And these go back into the old traditions, the old proto worlds, such as Greco Greek or Roman. How about Slavic, Mesopotamian? How about Welsh? There's a lot of types of demons out there. Do you even know what demon you want to work with? Are you drawn to a particular demon or a particular, tradition? These are things that you need to ask yourself before you even begin to go to a practitioner or get into a Facebook group, and ask these questions. And I think a lot of people just want to belong. They want to be a part of something. So, because other people are asking these questions, it's, what about me? Well, here it is. If you want to get into a tradition, I would recommend starting with the history of that tradition. I would recommend getting into a tradition and practicing it. You know, Set up and erect an altar. A lot of different traditions deal with ancestors. Sometimes it's a hereditary family lineage. So you're coming at a tradition from a family hierarchy, ancestral. So you're going to be working with necromancy a lot of the time. You're going to be working with your ancestors and those who came before you. You're going to be learning how to invoke or evoke a spirit through circles. Are you getting into grimoire traditions like, say, the Grand Grimoire, the Grand Grimoire Red Dragon or Black Dragon for that matter? Three different types of grimoires there, by the way. The Constitution of Pope Honorius. Maybe you're getting into the Solomantic aspects. These are things that are most common in today's practice, but they're incomplete because those entire records are housed within the Vatican archives or some museum that basically hinders what you're allowed to see. The problem with this is when you are new upon the path of, say, demonolatry, for an example, a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of different systems out there. It's not just the Goetic system. It's not just the Exu if you're into Quimbanda or Umbanda. It's not just the pagan gods, such as, say, for an example, Hades, or let's go with Hecate. How about Anubis or Set? How about Chernobog or Belobog? You know? How about Phosphoros and Hespios in ancient Greek? Okay, how about Mesopotamian traditions such as Lilitu or Lamashtu? Okay, that has a huge a huge history with Moloch, for an example. Hell, even Pazuzu is known to have gone up, been an adversary or a mate to Lamashtu at one point. Do you even know where these traditions come from? No, you don't, because you're a newbie. You're an amateur, a acolyte, if you will. You're a beginner. And it's okay to inquire and ask, for guidance. There's nothing wrong with that. So to answer the first question, how do I join? Well, first, I would recommend that you do your research. I would recommend that you delve into various different religious perspectives, from the modern day systems to those going back to Zoroastrianism and before that. Okay? There's a lot of things that you can get into. I mean, if you want to get into necromancy, then I would recommend, going into S. Connolly's work. You know, she goes at it from a demonolator's perspective within necromancy. I believe the first book that she wrote was called Honoring Death. Very, very good book. I mean, she brings in Anubis, she brings in Hecate, she brings in Baal Bereth. I believe Boleth even, and Boom. You know, a lot of these are from the Goetic demons. The Lesser Key of Solomon. But she also brings in those of the old pagan gods as well. Now, a lot of times when you get into a tradition, a lot of these neophytes, if you will, they don't realize that all these modern day demons can be traced right back to the jinn. And the jinn can go back into the old pagan gods. But it comes down to the way they are perceived. How have they been corrupted over the years? Look at all the religious wars. A lot of things have been destroyed. A lot of things have been corrupted. A lot of things are left out. So you have to do your research. You have to learn. Compare notes. So to get into a tradition, number one, you got to know that tradition. You got to be incorporated into that tradition and get to know the demons. You got to get to know the ancestors. You got to be able to create things like, let's say, for an example, phylacteries. Okay? You've got talismans for protection that you wear. You got those on your walls that are called talismans. They tefillin, if you want to go into the old term for these amulets of protection. Then you have relics, things of power. Okay, look at the cross, for an example, in the Hebraic system. A cross, or the crucifixion of Jesus, for an example, the cross, or a piece of that cross, was collected after his death, supposedly, and is now considered to be a relic of great power. Look at the ring of Solomon, the king, considered to be of great power. If you follow the Knights of Templar, you probably heard of the Forsaken. These are three knights that have supposedly gained supernatural power through necromancy, wearing three different rings, one ring per night. that gave them this power? Is this folklore or is this actual myth? Is it historical? You've got to understand this stuff. So, once you get into a system that intrigues you, you come to understand that tradition. You begin to understand, okay, these particular demons or these particular entities are of what I'm looking to get to know. Let's say, for an example, you want to deal with venoms, poisons. You want to get into herbology, for an example, then you'd want to get into the Greek mythology and deal with the nymphs or that of Pan, okay, which are entities that deal with the forest. How about the Sith or the Sidi, depending if you're going from the Irish or the Scottish tradition, okay, of the people of the mounds. Each one of these individuals deals with a certain type of herbology. They deal with certain knowledge that deals with nature. Okay? Get into witchcraft, go into, let's go with Slavic. You're going to deal with Baba Yaga, the witch considered to be the witch of the 12th dimension. Now, if you follow Slavic tradition, she's also helped those like, say, let's go with Kakashi, the Deathless. Taught him magic of necromancy, specifically that of the soul phylactery. How about the challenges that she gave to not only a young king, but also to Kakashi to achieve the harnessing of the fastest steed? Wow. Okay. So, knowing this, you're dealing with herbs, you're dealing with tests and trials. You're learning how to become a hexa. How about a strigoi or a strega? How about a necromancer or a shaman? Are you getting into shamanism because you want to work with the spirits and you want to work with the living? You want to become like a druid or a wizard? These are terminologies of practitioners that deal mostly with nature. Okay? Wow. So, right there, I've given you numerous sources just on nature based. I've also given you sources of demons or gods, if you will, and goddesses of death magic. Okay? Are you looking for those of justice? Like Osiris, who judges you based off your iniquity. Or how about that of justice based off Hecate, for an example? Hecate is renowned for justice, but she does it in such a way that it doesn't matter if it's you or your target that you're sending her after. She will incorporate any misdeed or injustice as being vile and she will punish it. Okay? Whereas Anubis, or I should say Osiris, for an example, deals solely with the scale of the golden feather and deals strictly with the iniquity of that individual that you want to punish. Now, let's say, for an example, you want to work with Anubis. Now, what does justice deal with the jackal-headed guardian of the cemeteries, the protector of the grave? Well, let's look at it this way. A lot like Osiris, who has the gold versus the feather on the scale, Anubis actually deals with the human heart versus the feather. So your deeds are what he judges. Are you worthy to get into heaven or hell? Think about it. There's all kinds of forms and levels of justice. So it comes down to the tradition that you're getting into. Are you going to be a Wiccan, a pagan, a Satanist, A demonator, a Luciferian, a shaman, necromancer? How about a voodoo zan? How about a santerio, you know, a santero, a brua, a bruo? Are you going to get into working with, say, Chango, for an example, who's considered one of the most powerful Orisha? Or how about, let's go with the death aspects of Oya? I love working with Oya. She has guided me on a lot of different levels of necromantic practice. Love working with her, and I got nothing but respect for Oya. Okay? Now, let's say, for an example, you want to make, say, a pact, and you've decided on a particular path working. Let's say you want to be a Satanist. Now, Satanists come in many forms. You got traditional, theistic, spiritual, agnostic, Luciferian, demonator, and most importantly, what most would classify as the very first, the atheistic. Now, personally, I do not see that as being part of Satanism. And this is why. As an atheist, you've already made up your mind that there is no heaven, there is no hell, there is no God, there is no Satan. But yet you're going to call on the forces of darkness to bestow their wisdom, their power upon you. You are God, basically. So why would you call on another entity if you're already God? It made flesh. John 3:16, if you will. Think about that for just a minute. This is why most Satanists today do not look at atheistic as being a part of Satanism. But how would you know that if you didn't study the various texts and books and Bibles and basically ritualistic practices that are out there? How about all the organizations that claim to be of Satan? How would you know if you did not study their works? Now, personally, as a former Satanist, I really connected to Anton Szandor LaVey. I liked the way that he spoke, the way he presented demonolatry, how he pursued being an adversary, but also what a Satanist is and is not. It's not this modern day, atheistic or agnostic perspective. No, he actually was a practicing Satanist, a true Satanist, if you will. And that really was shown in his essays within The Devil's Notebook and Satan Speaks. But then you get into later works like, let's go with Peter H. Gilmore's book. Now it's agnostic, it's atheistic, it's dealing with music, it's dealing with perspectives of hard work, it's dealing with you gaining power through yourself. This is why I don't view today's Satanism as being valid, especially if they claim to be an atheistic Satanist. Now, if you want to get into later works, let's go with Alistair Knott. Alistair Knott has put together at least, I want to say, 9, 10 books now. The latest one was a journal. I haven't gotten that one yet, but I own all the others. And I really like the way this man speaks upon Satanism in the relationship with Satanas, performing the rites and performing the rituals based off, the equinoxes and solstices. But most importantly, where there is no particular moon phase, if you will, that is best for working with demons. Now, Reverend Kane, on the other hand, he put together a few good books that really simplifies what a Satanist is. Okay? More so, he puts the kings together, he puts hems together, and he speaks on the magical practices in a very clear and, well, lightweight understanding of the gnosis of each type of practice and what Satanism is. I like that perspective. Now, if you want to get into more radicalism when it comes to Satanism, go with Reverend Cesar 999. His Satanic Bible, which I believe was redone at least 3 times, from the original to what is updated today within his books. Now, this particular one really hates on every single type of Satanism that is out there, but he looks at it as more like race mysticism. Now, what is race mysticism? This goes back to the Third Reich of neo-Nazism, the early days, and it deals with the purification of the blood. Okay? Meaning your blood type is what is, how should I say this in a nice way, more pure than, say, a Jewish, or let's say Haitian, if you will. Now, I'm not saying this as a bad thing. It's just that's what race mysticism is. It's like radical politics, you know? It's like, how should I say this? Fascism at its best. And that's, or I should say at its worst as well, because that's basically what that was. Now, I didn't know anything about race mysticism until I got my hands on The Rise of the Fourth Reich by Jim Marrs. And when I got into that, I found a lot of things that I did not know from that period of time. And believe me, I love watching the old videos of World War One and World War Two, the Civil War, the American Revolution, and stuff like that, the reenactments of it. Amazing from a historical perspective. But a lot of those don't talk about these type of things, and Jim Marrs really did a wonder in that book, which really opened up the early days of mysticism in the pursuit of the occult, long before Adolf Hitler became a senator and became a dictator. It was back when he was actually a military police and investigating the Thule Society. It was back before he went to prison for 9 months. Amazing. But still. So, what is this type of thing? Well, when you get into the actual practices, demonolatry is a way for you to learn to communicate with the dead, the demons, and learn to open yourself up to various different powers. Now, like I said, with Reverend Cesar 999, his is very radical. So he looks at it as a vampire academy type thing. You know, the super soldier, if you will. That's his perspective, and I respect it, but I don't agree with a lot of what he put in there. So, how would you know what path fits you if you did not study each path? Okay, each type of Satanism. Well, I started out in spiritual Satanism before going into theistic and finally ending up in traditional. I loved traditional Satanism. I got into the ONA practices, which was more about, bettering yourself, pushing yourself. Think of a weightlifter lifting weights. That's what the ONA was about. But also, think of a master at chess at the same time, mixed in with occultism, dealing with astrology, dealing with alchemy, dealing with the pursuit of bettering your body, your mind, and your spirit, but connecting to the demons. I believe one of the latest path workings that is out there is called demonopathy, demonpathy, demonopathy, something to that effect. And there's a few well-known occultists that speak on it. Satan and Sons is one of them. I believe she has like an hour and a half uh, video on that one. Tells you about working with the demons for a common goal. You know, not just bettering yourself or doing things solely for them as a servant, but working with them. Whereas the more Hebraic systems work for, towards you dominate them and they have to subjugate themselves to you and do your will through domination. Look at the Grand Grimoire with the Rod of Power. Personally, I've never had to force a demon to help me or to teach me. It just took time to understand rituals, how to invoke them, and to give offerings and sacrifices in a way that will benefit you both. It's about that mutual relationship. Now, the way I look at it is working with demons is a lot like a saloon door from the 18th century. That door goes both ways. Okay? Anybody who's seen one of those 1950s westerns or more modern day westerns like The Magnificent Seven, for an example, you know what I'm talking about with that saloon door, moving back and forth. It's a revolving door. Now, working with demons is about mutual understanding. When you do pacts, blood pacts, you don't do anything elaborate, out of this world. You do what is acceptable. But are you willing to work with them upon that goal to achieve it? And what are you willing to do for them in return? They have specific needs that they want you to do in this world for them. But they're willing to help you to achieve your goals. Okay? That's the thing that you've got to understand. So you come to somebody like myself or one of these other well-known occultists and you say, well, how do I join? Do you even know why you want to join? Do you even know, why you want to join it? What path are you going to join? You don't just come to somebody and go, hey, I want to join. Really? Wow. Okay. And then they get pissed off because you dare to ask them questions. It's not being mean when you reply to them. Do you even know what Satanism is? Do you know which path working to get into? What style of paganism or Wicca do you want to get into? What aspects of the African Caribbean traditions do you want to get into? Do you even know their history? Do you even know the Loa or the Orisha? How about the Exu? Most people that come to you don't know this stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a learning curve. That's all it is. Now, somebody like myself can guide you to that knowledge, but eventually you've got to be the one to stand on your own 2 feet, take responsibility for your life, and delve into those works. Learn about it. That means you got to spend your money, get the various different types of books from various different types of authors, learn about that tradition, erect an altar, invoke or evoke a spirit, a demon, a jinn, or even the loa, depending on the path, and begin building trust with that spirit. Work within that pantheon for 2 to 3 years. You know, before you even begin to bring in another spirit. When I got into the tradition of necromancy about 8 years ago, for an example, I chose the type of magic and sorcery that I wanted to follow. I picked two individuals to work with because they both had applications that fit me and my goals. So I built an altar, I created phylacteries, I started gathering the tools, and I started learning how to summon them from a necromantic perspective. And before long, I went from necromancy to grave lording to lichdom to being a lick. My goal is archlick. That's my personal goal. But it's going to take a long time to work to that and to achieve that goal. So, how do you understand the path that you're on if you're not willing to study that area of expertise? From vile magics, let's say, for an example, I actually went out and got this because I just ordered a book called The Munich Manual of Demonic Magic for about $16 and some odd cents off Amazon. But I like this book by Richard Keffer, and it's been a while since I've read it. So I wanted to get back into it because it deals with exercises, if you will, experimentation. And one of the things that caught my attention when I was studying and researching this other book that I just ordered is things on how to work with the demons as equals. But in this particular book, it's talking about controlling them and without doing rituals. And it's like, okay, I wonder if that's the same type of magic and sorcery that is in this particular book. Not just the books that I'm also going through and reading and studying things like thanatology, anthropology, archaeology, oh my God, I can't speak tonight. Archaeology, for an example. Um, you know, anything to do with death. Look at the Sin Eater, for an example. Going back throughout history and understanding the medical perspectives of necromancy and how modern medicine came about. Things like the defibrillator, going back to the 18th century with electrocution. How about the 17th century with ice? Wow, amazing, right? And then getting into herbalism and finding out all about these elixirs and powders and potions that you can erect that go along with this path. So, how do you join? First of all, study, get the materials. It's not something that you just join, it's something that you become. So, there is no joining anything. You become what you practice, what you apply to your life. That's number one. Number two, how can I get this to work for me? Well, look at it this way. Are you keeping records on your practices? Okay, are you keeping journals? Dream journals, ritual journals, personal journal of your daily activities. Okay? And this is why. When you are sleeping, You're tapping into what is known as the gamma rays. You're tapping into the Z state of slumber, which is the deepest slumbering state that you can get into. This is where the conscious releases its hold and the unconscious begins. Okay? So let's say, for an example, you've done 34 things during the day. Okay? One of which has you completely baffled. Completely baffled. Okay? Now, you've been trying to figure this out for, let's say, all day, since this morning. You haven't figured it out. You've studied, Google, you've gone into books, you've taken notes, but it still doesn't make sense to you, right? Well, in the Z state of slumber, you dream. This is where your, like I said, your subconscious kicks in, and this is where your mind starts putting things into play, into perspective. Think of it like no mind from Bushido when you're in meditation. How about void meditation practices where you look at things from a third party observer? You're seeing it, you're acknowledging it, but you're paying attention to what is coming through from symbols, seals, images. This is where you're going to take your dream journal and you're going to write everything down as much as you can remember, so that if you continue to dream about it, or down the road you find something that connects to it or possibly connects to it, you can go back in and go, wait a minute, I remember this. It was back on this date. This is what it came out as. Now, your ritual journal is everything that you do in your sanctuary. Okay, you're in a sanctuary. That means the meditation, the mantras, the banishing, the cleansing rituals, the invocations, evocations. What did you sense? What did you feel? Did you hear anything? Did you sense anything? Did the temperature fluctuate? What did you observe in there? That's what you put in your ritual journal. Now, outside of that, you have what is called your daily journal. Now, your daily journal is everything from your thoughts of the day and night. Let's say, for an example, you meditated, you went to work, you were thinking about, you were calling on the deities, the gods, the demons, perhaps even Sacred Death herself, Santa Morte. Okay? You realize something that you had to take note of during the day. Well, you write that in that journal, and then you can go back to it later. Perhaps you were praying, and all of a sudden you realize, the last three transactions were like 666, or, let's say, I'll use an example today. I went to two different stores, and I was at my son's mother's house, and I thought it was funny and uncanny because yesterday I ordered some items from Walmart, had it delivered, and it came to roughly about $53 to $54 the day before. Today, I went to two different stores, $54 and some odd cents a piece. So I spent almost $200 in 2 days. But you see that combination of $53 to $54 during three transactions, right? Now, what is the resemblance of that? Okay? That's what you got to realize. Is it a lucky number? Are the spirits trying to tell you something? One of the books that I have is called Demon Mechanics. And it's a book by HG, what was her name? HG, oh fuck, I can't think of her name offhand. But she was like a Mother Teresa type. It's a Catholic book based off demonology. From her college years to where she is now. And she actually puts in numerology in there. I can even go underneath Google, type in the spiritualism connection to $54 or three, say $53. I can go right to that book that's out there on my shelf, pull it off, go to that numerology number, go down through, okay, 54 right there. This is what it represents. Okay, 53. This is what it entails from a biblical perspective. One of the things that I've learned is that not everything is in your face. Sometimes it's in your subconscious. Sometimes it's a matter of working through it. Sometimes they want you to work for it, which means you're going to have to delve into research. Right now, I have a total of 5 bags of books right down here next to me, and I've got another 3 that's out there. Okay? I've got a stack of books right here on my desk, 2 stacks actually, of books that I'm going through right now. Some that I started reading back on the 1st of January, 2026, and I'm still reading. I started with S. Connolly's books, started with Honoring Death. I started going through some of Miss Dreadwood's works. I started going through the Grim Wars. And I started keeping journals. I started keeping, matter of fact, I got a stack of journals right behind my cell phone here of different things that I'm keeping track of, like herbalism, like rituals, my personal things that I've been seeing, things that I'm working on, but most importantly, my communion with those that I work with. Because that is how you are going to achieve self mastery. That's how you're going to start evolving. And that is how you are going to achieve apotheosis. Not the false kind, but the true kind of apotheosis. And that comes with time, that comes with patience, dedication, commitment, and so forth. All the way down. It comes with blood, sweat, and tears. With every trial, every test, you're going to come out stronger. You know, if you would have looked at me and said that in 8 years I would be investing, I would have said you were crazy. If you had come to me and said in roughly about 6 years, you're going to retire and go into investing full time through day trading or just living off your stocks, I would have said you were crazy. But I listened to those that I work with. They give excellent wisdom. Boone, for an example, is excellent with financial aspects, just like Klonick is exquisite with knowledge of finances. You know, if you really want to get into a specific number, work with Mamet. Just keep in mind, he's one of those tricksters that will eventually turn it on you if you're not careful. So you see what I mean? Knowledge is power, but you have to get into the path working that you are attracted to. It's not a sometime thing. It is not a part-time thing. It is a full-time practice. 35 years in various different traditions. That's just me. The last 8 of which I have been a full-blown practicing necromancer. Wow. You think that comes easy? And over that 8 years, I've written 5 essays, 4 of which were published in Carval's books. Amazing. I've had interviews with more advanced practitioners, more popular ones, I guess you'd say, than myself. But I've also been interviewed by a Russian pagan, journal, journalist, so, which is pretty cool. But this comes when you develop over time and you start showing that, guess what? Here's the knowledge. These are the sources. This is how I got to be where I'm at today. You know? So, and as you go, you're going to be learning new skills. You're going to be applying those skills to your life. And you're going to look back one day and go, I can't believe I've come this far in just 8 years. You know? You look back to those years beforehand and it kind of makes you look and go, hey, what did I do after, before I became a necromancer? What did I do all those years through all that hard work and studying and religious worshiping before I got to where I'm at today? I mean, if I hadn't been invited to go to that church, I wouldn't have met Wade Townley, who got me interested in the ministry. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have known that I had a lot of people within the community of paganism, Wicca, and Satanism that look at me as an elder. You see how things develop over time. I mean, when you're a practicing Satanist, getting invited to a church, it's like, fuck yeah, why not? Let's see how much fun this could be, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, me as a minister? Are you freaking kidding? Now look at me. I'm an ordained archbishop, multi-faith, okay? With a doctorate of divinity in good standing. Wow. I've written 5 essays. I've grown to the point where a lot of things don't bother me. Things that would have set me off in the past don't even hit my radar anymore. That's for the younger generations. Because you're still learning. Hell, I'm still learning. But you know what? That comes with time. So just on necromancy, for an example, seeing how far I've come in 8 years, now 9 years really, and now, think about it, 9 years. If I've come this far in 9 years as a practicing necromancer, I wonder where I'll be in another 9. How about 15 years? Wow. Kind of gives you goosebumps just thinking about it, right? Now think about that. If I'm still studying various different topics, adding to my arsenal, people come to me all the time. I help the ones I can, but I give you references and not just references, but sources to go to for you. This is just chicken nuggets, if you will. You still got the whole chicken over there to go through. This is just the giblets. But I always make myself available to the public as well because it sets that example. It shows that you're responsible. Wow. Now think about that. Not only are the spirits looking at you as somebody who's responsible that they want to work with, but look at the people that look at you as an elder. That's heavy. That's deep. You look at the level of responsibility that you have. It's not fun and games anymore. It's a lifestyle. For an example, today, I can't go into detail because it falls underneath the ministry aspects, But someone looked at me and said, "You're a minister. You need to listen to me, bitch." Like ministers, well, technically it's called confession for a reason. But you know what I mean. That's the type of trust that people are going to look at you with if you're responsible. Now, the question is, do you want to be that, to get to that level and beyond? What are you willing to do? Are you going to keep doing the same old, and go, well, how do I join? Well, I'll go to somebody else. How do I join? This person said this. That person said that. How do I begin my journey? How many how long does it take you to get underneath Google? How long does it take you to type in, right here on YouTube, how to become a Wiccan, how to become a Satanist, how to become a necromancer, how to become a voodoo zant? How many videos have been put out on these topics? Wow. So hard, right? But yet you're going to waste people's time and go, how do I join? Well, what have you researched? Nothing. I just want to know. Well, Google it. So that's that's the first two things that I would recommend to people. And I apologize for the little rant and the educational service, but you know me, I'm an educator. Once I get on a topic, I just go with it. So, um, let me see. I know a lot of people have been sitting here texting on here. I've been trying to keep up with it a little bit. Max, welcome. Love, welcome. Jaha Gear. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Ahmed the Goat, welcome. Dark Wolf Gaming, welcome. Reddit T, welcome. And Javoin, hopefully I pronounced your name right. Javoin, welcome. So, I hope that this video has been educational. I hope it's been enlightening. And I do want to thank people who have come on here and communed with me. Dark Wolf, my day has been going pretty good. I spent it with my dogs, my huskies. Spent a lot of time in meditation, and I did some reading today. So, and I also tormented my cats, which was kind of fun. So, yeah. So, my phone is so touchy. But anyways, I want to thank everybody for jumping on here with me. I hope it's been educational. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to hit that notification button. And I hope you take my advice and do your research into the tradition that you want to get into, because that's going to benefit you more than going to somebody and going, hey, how do I join? How do I begin? Because you know that old expression by Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse, opinions vary? Well, think about it like this. Everybody has an asshole, right? That's basically opinions. Just saying. The best way for you to learn is to get your hands dirty. Get into the work, get into the research mode, and lock yourself in and dedicate yourself to the system that interests you the most. After 2-3 years, maybe 4 years down the road, then start expanding into other traditions. But keep journals. Keep a record of your process, because by the time you're 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, you're going to look back and go, wow, I can't believe I've studied this much. So, with that said, I'm out. Have a good day or a good night wherever you are, and I appreciate you.